Ophi steps into the grand hotel lobby. Her simple dress and worn-out handbag make her stand out in the sea of glitz and glamour. The chandelier lights cast a harsh glow, emphasizing the stark contrast between her modest appearance and the opulence around her. The receptionist eyes Sophie up and down, a mocking smirk playing on her lips. "Sorry, this event is for VIPs only. Someone like you definitely isn't on the list." Sophie tries to explain, saying she has an invitation. But before she can utter another word, a security guard steps forward, grabbing her arm and escorting her outside. Behind her, whispers and chuckles ripple through the crowd, a cruel reminder of her perceived insignificance. Standing outside the glass doors, Sophie clutches her handbag tighter, eyes glistening with hurt. Inside, the soft music from the gala drowns out the words she wished she could say, words no one cared to hear. Sophie stands outside the hotel, the cold wind biting through her thin dress. Inside, the sound of soft music drifts through the glass doors, mingling with laughter and the clinking of wine glasses, a cruel reminder of the world she's been excluded from. A group of hotel staff gathers nearby, their eyes fixed on Sophie as they whisper and chuckle. "Look at her. That dress must be straight out of a thrift store." Another one sneers. "She thinks she's Cinderella crashing the royal ball or something." Sophie lowers her gaze, her fists clenched as she fights back the sting of humiliation. Through the glass, she watches women in glamorous gowns glide through the room, their laughter light and carefree, a stark contrast to her own trembling composure. Her eyes darken, but she keeps her expression calm. Taking a deep breath, she turns away, each step heavy as those mocking words echo in her mind, cutting deeper with every step she takes. Memories flood back like a raging storm. Sophie recalls the days when she was a successful businesswoman, standing tall in a spacious office, giving orders with a confident gaze. The plush leather chairs and gleaming glass walls all reflected the image of a powerful woman. But then, everything crumbled. The family business went bankrupt after a series of disastrous investments. Images flash by, employees walking out in silence, the office being sealed off, stacks of paperwork strewn across the floor. Sophie stands alone in the empty office, holding the foreclosure notice with trembling hands. A single tear rolls down her cheek as she stares at her once elegant business suit, now tossed among old clothes, waiting to be sold. Back to the present, Sophie takes a deep breath, her eyes fierce with determination. Clenching her fists, she whispers to herself, "I will come back stronger." Sophie returns to her small, modest apartment. The room is simple but neatly arranged. She drops her bag onto the table, sinks into a chair, and closes her eyes, taking a deep breath to steady herself. Moments later, she opens her eyes and grabs her phone. She dials Chloe, her best friend and a well-connected event planner. At a small cafe nearby, Sophie recounts the entire incident of being humiliated at the hotel. Her expression is calm, but her eyes burn with determination. Chloe stirs her coffee, eyebrows furrowed. "Are you sure you want to do this? They're a big corporation." Sophie nods, her gaze unwavering. "Chloe, do you remember Henry Kingston? The man who came to me for business advice when he was just a struggling entrepreneur. Now he owns that hotel." Chloe's eyes widen. "You helped him when he had nothing. So you plan to reach out to him too?" Sophie clenches her fists, a sly smile forming on her lips. "Exactly. They think I'm just a nobody. It's time they learn a lesson they won't forget." That evening, at a private gala for elite entrepreneurs, the room glitters with dazzling lights and opulent outfits. Chloe steps into the grand hall and subtly signals to Sophie, who is waiting in the corner. Sophie steps forward. This time, she's transformed. Draped in a sleek black evening gown, her hair swept up elegantly, and her eyes exuding confidence and poise. Gone is the simple, timid woman. Now, Sophie radiates the aura of a queen reclaiming her throne. Henry Kingston, a tall, silver-haired man, is engaged in a conversation with a group of businessmen. When his eyes catch sight of Sophie, he freezes. His eyes widen, and without hesitation, he strides toward her. "Sophie, is that really you?" Henry's face lights up as he reaches out to embrace her. Sophie smiles calmly, her voice steady. "Henry, it's been a while. Looks like you're doing quite well for yourself." Henry steps back, eyes brimming with gratitude. "Sophie, you saved me from bankruptcy when I had nothing. I owe everything to you." Now, it's my turn to repay that debt. Whatever you need, just say the word. Sophie meets his gaze, her eyes cold yet resolute. Then help me teach some people a lesson they'll never forget. The next day, the grand doors of the hotel swing open. The sharp click of high heels echoes through the marble floor, each step deliberate, powerful, and full of authority. Sophie walks beside Henry Kingston. Henry is dressed in a dark, tailored suit, exuding power and wealth, while Sophie dons a sleek, elegant evening gown. Her gaze is calm yet piercing. As they pass the reception desk, the staff members immediately bow their heads respectfully to Henry. "Good afternoon, Mr. Kingston. It's an honor to have you back, sir." Henry nods but keeps moving forward. Sophie walks beside him, her eyes scanning the familiar faces, the same faces that had humiliated and mocked her just a day ago. The receptionist, the very one who threw her out, glances at Sophie without recognition. He's too busy fawning over Henry to realize that the poised, powerful woman walking beside the billionaire is the same simple woman he had looked down upon. Sophie strides forward, her gaze fixed straight ahead, her lips curling into a slight, cold smile. Henry leans closer to Sophie, his voice low. "Sophie, are you sure you want to do this?" Sophie smirks, her eyes glinting with determination. "They taught me a lesson. Now it's my turn to teach them one." The hotel buzzes with news of the upcoming charity gala scheduled for the weekend. Every staff member is mobilized to prepare for the high-profile event. Inside the conference room, Henry stands confidently on stage, his smile broad and welcoming. "Ladies and gentlemen, this charity gala is sponsored by a very generous, anonymous benefactor. This person has entrusted us with complete control of the event and wishes for every guest to be treated with the utmost respect." The staff applauds enthusiastically. But Sophie remains at the back of the room, arms crossed, her expression calm, yet intense as she watches every reaction. After the meeting, Henry approaches Sophie, his voice low and sincere. "Everything is set. Are you sure you want to remain anonymous?" Sophie smiles, a steely resolve in her eyes. "I want to see how they really treat those who don't stand out. Let me stay invisible." Henry nods, his expression knowing. "Understood. I'll make sure there are a few VIP guests. No designer clothes, no famous faces." Sophie clenches her fists subtly, her gaze fixed on the hotel lobby, the same place where just days ago she was humiliated and thrown out like she was worthless. The gala is about to begin, and the hotel lobby is a dazzling display of lights and lavish decorations. The reception staff stands upright, ready to welcome the esteemed guests. An elderly woman, with silver hair and a simple, well-pressed dress, steps inside. She clutches her worn-out purse tightly, her eyes scanning the room as she tries to find information about the charity event. She approaches the reception desk, her voice soft yet hopeful. "Excuse me, I heard there's a charity gala tonight. May I attend?" The receptionist, the same one who humiliated Sophie before, sneers, looking the woman up and down. "Do you really think you belong here? This is an event for VIPs, not people like you." The woman lowers her head, stammering. "But, I just wanted to see. I truly care about the charity cause." The receptionist crosses her arms, a smug expression on her face. "Sorry, you're not on the guest list. Leave now before I call security." Sophie stands a few feet away, watching the scene unfold, her jaw clenched. Her eyes narrow, a flash of anger visible beneath her calm exterior. Henry walks up to Sophie, his voice low. "Sophie, how do you want to handle this?" Sophie's lips curve into a cold, calculating smile. "No need to rush. Let them dig their own grave." Henry nods, his gaze fixed on the receptionist, waiting to see what will unfold. The elderly woman turns away, shoulders slumped, and walks out of the hotel, her small frame almost disappearing into the night. Sophie watches her go, her eyes dark with determination. Sophie sat alone in the dimly lit room, her eyes cold as they scanned through the list of people who had once been humiliated and belittled by the hotel staff. With deliberate calm, she picked up a pen and signed each envelope, each letter bearing the same powerful message. "This gala is for you. Come as you are. Show them your true worth." At the hotel lobby, the receptionist stood tall, a forced smile plastered on her face. One by one, guests dressed in plain, unassuming clothing stepped forward. A middle-aged man wearing a faded coat approached the reception desk, holding out his invitation. "I was invited to the gala," he said hesitantly. The receptionist looked him up and down, her lips curving into a sneer. "Are you sure? This event is for VIP guests only. You don't seem to fit the bill." The man bit his lip, his eyes flashing with embarrassment, but still managed to say, "But I have an invitation." The receptionist waved him off dismissively. "Sorry, but your name isn't on the list." The man's shoulders slumped as he turned away, a mixture of shame and disappointment clouding his face. Standing in the corner, Sophie observed every interaction, her expression unreadable. Beside her, Henry crossed his arms, eyebrows furrowed. "The way they treat these guests is disgraceful," he muttered, his jaw clenched. Sophie's lips curled into a cold, subtle smile, her gaze still fixed on the lobby. "They're digging their own grave," she said softly. "Now it's time to let them realize how deep it is." Henry remained silent, eyes following each guest who was turned away with a look of hurt and humiliation. Sophie, meanwhile, stayed still, her eyes distant, but her mind calculating the next step. Sophie took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage, the spotlight shining directly on her. She held the microphone firmly, her gaze sweeping across the room. The audience fell silent, eyes fixed on the woman they had all underestimated. Sophie's calm yet powerful voice echoed through the hall. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Sophie Bennett, the woman who was thrown out of this very hotel because she didn't look important enough." The room remained deathly quiet. The receptionist's face turned ashen, her eyes glued to the floor. The security guard shifted uncomfortably, his hands clasped tightly together. Sophie's gaze sharpened, and she pointed toward the guests who had been rejected earlier. The middle-aged man in the faded coat, the elderly woman in simple clothing. "These guests," Sophie said, her voice ringing with authority, "are not just ordinary people. They are the major sponsors of tonight's event. The very people you humiliated, disrespected, and turned away." Gasps echoed throughout the room. The receptionist swallowed hard, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. The security guard's eyes darted nervously between Sophie and the guests. Sophie continued, her tone growing colder. "Tonight, you judged people based solely on their appearance, not knowing their true worth. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the mistake you will remember for a very long time." Henry walked onto the stage, his expression serious yet remorseful. Taking the microphone from Sophie, he turned to face the stunned audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, we have all witnessed a shameful display of judgment based solely on appearances. I stand here to apologize, not just to Sophie Bennett, but to every guest who was mistreated tonight," Henry said, his voice firm but laced with regret. He then looked directly at Sophie, bowing his head slightly. "Sophie, you were right. We failed to uphold the values we claimed to represent. For that, I am deeply sorry." The crowd murmured among themselves, some nodding in agreement, others exchanging guilty glances. Henry straightened up, his gaze now fixed on the receptionist and security guards standing off to the side. "Effective immediately," he announced, his tone cold and resolute. "The receptionist and security guard responsible for tonight's incident are hereby suspended pending a full investigation. Furthermore, we will be reviewing our entire staff to ensure that such incidents never happen again." The receptionist's face went pale, her knees trembling. The security guard clenched his fists, jaw tight, unable to meet Henry's eyes. Sophie watched silently, her expression unreadable. Henry continued, "This hotel will not be known as a place that judges by appearance, but by how we treat people, with dignity and respect." In a small, dimly lit office, the receptionist and the security guard stood before Sophie, their heads hung low, eyes glistening with tears. The receptionist's voice quivered as she spoke. "We're so sorry, Ms. Bennett. We had no idea who you were. Please, give us another chance." Beside her, the security guard nodded, his jaw clenched as he wiped away a stray tear. "I deeply regret how I treated you. It was wrong. I let my assumptions cloud my judgment," he admitted, his voice heavy with remorse. Sophie leaned back in her chair, her expression calm yet stern. She crossed her arms and fixed her gaze on them. "You know," she began, her voice steady and composed, "when you threw me out of the hotel, it wasn't just me you disrespected. You disrespected every guest who didn't fit your so-called standards." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Opportunities don't come from expensive clothes or fancy jewelry," Sophie continued, her eyes unwavering. "They come from how you treat others, with kindness, respect, and dignity. And tonight, you failed that test. The receptionist's shoulders shook as she sobbed quietly, unable to meet Sophie's eyes. The security guard swallowed hard, his face contorted with guilt. Sophie stood up, walking past them towards the door. "I believe in second chances," she said, her tone softening slightly. "But they have to be earned. Show me that you've learned this lesson, and we'll see." Without another word, Sophie walked out, leaving them to ponder the weight of her words. The story of the gala and Sophie's powerful lesson spread like wildfire across social media. Clips of her standing confidently on stage, calling out the mistreatment of guests, were shared and reshared, accompanied by hashtags like #NeverJudge, #KindnessMatters, and #SecondChances. Comments flooded in from people all over, expressing their admiration for Sophie's courage and her ability to turn humiliation into a life-changing lesson. One post went viral, a video of Sophie's speech with the caption, "This woman was thrown out of a hotel because of her simple appearance." What she did next left everyone speechless. The video garnered thousands of views within hours, and the comments poured in. "What a queen! I needed to hear this today." A reminder to treat everyone with respect. In a coffee shop, two young women scrolled through the video. One of them, eyes wide with realization, looked at her friend and said, "You know, I'll never judge someone by their appearance again. That woman just taught me a valuable lesson." Her friend nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing her face as the two continued to watch Sophie's powerful words echo through the screen. Sophie stands alone on the hotel balcony, the city lights twinkling below like a sea of stars. The cool breeze brushes against her face as she takes a deep breath, eyes reflecting both relief and quiet strength. The night is calm, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions she had faced earlier. A faint smile appears on her lips as she thinks back to everything that happened, the humiliation, the resolve, the triumph. True value lies not in appearances but in actions. Sophie closes her eyes, letting the wind carry away the last remnants of pain and resentment. She turns back inside, ready to start a new chapter, stronger and more determined than ever. If this story made you reflect, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more powerful life lessons.